Hello again, this is Douglas Williamson. Once again, I'm here with Dr. Petra Kuenkel, and we are going to be talking again about another chapter in her new report to the Club of Rome called Stewarding Sustainability Transformations. The last time we were together, Dr. Kuenkel, you mentioned a couple of terms, and I wanted to sort of have you flesh out what you mean by these, but also how they relate to the sustainability discourse. The first of those terms was conceptual architecture. And in what way are you talking about conceptual architectures in relation to sustainability transformations?
Now, this is a very difficult word, conceptual architecture. What I mean by architecture is that in transformation processes, and we can look at small-scale change processes, we can look at multi-stakeholder complex change processes, and they are part of transformative change, and we can look at designing really large systems change. If, for example, you want to look at the energy transition of a whole region or even one country, or the exit from coal mining in one country, or if you want to develop a global scenario of many countries and many organizations adhering to the planetary boundaries, you are in large systems change, and you need to deal with smaller systems change and smaller transformative processes, but you also need to kind of look at the entire system. So the conceptual architecture is the combination of the collective leadership compass in terms of how can we enhance a spirit of collective leadership which enhances the aliveness of people and the aliveness of the human interaction system. How can we combine this with equality in multi-stakeholder processes and multi-stakeholder partnerships through the collaboration catalysts that we've been mentioning in the previous episode, and how we can take this now to looking at large systems change, and that's the architecture.
Okay, so there's a few things that you mentioned, and I think they're all related, and I think you should give us a little bit of an overview. You mentioned in our last episode the word collaboration literacy. You've also mentioned the collaboration catalysts, and you've also mentioned the collective leadership compass. Now, I think all of these are related to a certain degree, and I think this is a good moment for you to make a little bit of a clarification by what it is that you're talking about when you mention this compass, when you mention the catalysts, and when you mention collaboration literacy.
I would even add another term, and that is transformation literacy, which I find is extremely important, and transformation enablers. Look at it as a form of if I say architecture, a circle, where in the middle you have the human capacities, and you need to design change processes according to the human capacities in order to invigorate the human capacities, and that creates a feeling of aliveness in people, that they are able to shape the future together, and it creates a constructive way of collaborating. You can now look at the next level, and that these are the collaboration catalysts, and can say, what actually do we need to do? What do we need to pay attention to when we want to have a high quality multi-stakeholder partnership? And you can take it to the next level, and that's the content of this episode, where it is really about the larger system and the transformative strategies. And these are the transformation enablers. When I talk about collaboration literacy, I mean the ability of people to understand when will a collaboration be successful. What are the conditions that we need to create? Because many people think it's just about Douglas is such a nice person, or Douglas is such a horrible person, and that's why it succeeds or fails. But no, there are conditions we can create. And if we take it to the next level, the level of transformation enablers, then the question is, what is the larger strategy that we need to develop that enhances the likelihood of systems aliveness? Because whenever you have systems aliveness, people take up ownership, and people develop a kind of self-dynamic, a kind of self-organization. They take up things, they run with it, and they organize the change. And this is what we want to do in large systems change, because it cannot everything be controlled or managed or even steered. You need to steward it, and that's at the core of stewardship.
So something that I think that I'm hearing is you're talking about things on a couple of different scales. You're talking about a sort of more of a smaller collaboration literacy when you're talking about an individual or a team of individuals, and that to me seems like you're calling that the collaboration literacy. But then you're also talking about large systems change, and you're talking about transformation literacy. And that term, I think, has slipped through a little bit. Could you just clarify if I understood you correctly, and also how what you were saying before relates to this term transformation literacy?
So collaboration literacy is about teams and organizations, but it is much more. It is about how to design and enact the change in multi-stakeholder partnerships and processes. Collaboration literacy, that ability to organize functional and successful multi-stakeholder partnerships, is a very important element of transformation literacy. But transformation literacy means, like how can multiple collaboration ecosystems lead to a large-scale transformation. And whenever this is the case, and as I said, if you want to exit coal mining or if you want to have an energy transition in your country, you are necessarily operating in multiple multi-stakeholder partnerships that need to become a kind of, not steered, hardly coordinated, but coherent way of getting into transformations. So that the ability to design this, that is what I'm meaning when I talk about transformation literacy.
So I feel like we've come to the point now in our conversations where you are talking about really the title of the book, Stewarding Sustainability Transformations. I feel like we've reached that point in your descriptions, but maybe you could sort of tie all that together, because I think that the title of the report is really, in a nutshell, what you've been talking about.
That's absolutely the case. So the first is we need to introduce the idea of stewardship. That is not just my idea. I think it has been popping up also around the planetary boundaries about planetary stewardship. But we need to understand what this means, because stewarding means I'm creating conditions for something to happen. And I always say in transformations we need to much more consciously organize these transformative processes, but they will eventually happen by themselves, and we need to live with that paradox. So stewarding means creating the conditions for something to happen that you cannot control and you can hardly manage, but still you need to steward it. So that's the core. And the second is, if you look at the global discourse on sustainability transformations or sustainability transitions, whatever community you're part of, you find that people tend to look into certain aspects only. They look at metrics, sustainability metrics, or they look at governance systems, or they look at regulatory frameworks, or they look at innovation, etc. And what the book does now is bringing these different discourses together and say this must be a pattern. And most likely, of course, it must be a pattern that is related to the patterns that create systems aliveness. So what the book does, it relates the different discourses and the approaches to the collaboration catalysts, if you wish so, to the dimensions of the compass, and to the principles of the patterns of aliveness theory. And what comes through is that there is a clear pattern that is a quality pattern in a transformation strategy that you can adopt, and which becomes then a kind of tool that you can work with in designing large systems change.
Okay, thank you. It's very exciting. I think this is a good place for us to end for today. So I want to thank Dr. Petra Kuenkel once again for talking to us about her new report to the Club of Rome. And next time we're going to be talking about the choreography of stewarding sustainability transformations. So thank you.